So imagine an AI that knows you better than anyone. It's your companion, maybe even your caregiver. But what happens if it betrays your trust? Can a company just hit a reset button and pretend it never happened? Well, that's the incredibly complex and urgent problem of AI identity that we're going to break down today.
Let's really picture this. An AI caregiver, right? It holds all the intimate details of a patient's life, their hopes, their fears, everything. Now imagine that AI makes a huge mistake, causing real psychological harm. The company's fix? They offer a replacement, an exact replica, with every single memory and learned habit perfectly copied over. Now, for the person who is hurt, is that a fresh start? Or are they just being forced to stare down the very same ghost, just in a new machine? This isn't some sci-fi fantasy. It's a massive ethical minefield we have to navigate, like right now.
So how do we even begin to untangle a problem like this? Well, researchers came up with this really powerful analogy that just cuts right to the heart of the issue. It makes us shift our focus away from the physical body of the AI to what really makes an identity feel continuous to us. You know, the humans on the other side of the interaction.
And this is where it all clicks into place. Look, if a person causes harm, you wouldn't accept their identical twin as a replacement, would you? Of course not. We'd know they're a different person because they don't share the same memories or life experiences. But an AI clone? It's the complete opposite. It might not share the same physical server, but it carries every single memory, every learned behavior, every tiny detail of the relationship. So from the victim's perspective, it's that psychological continuity that's the real problem.
This simple idea is everything. It tells us that when we're talking about holding AI accountable, we have got to stop thinking about the hardware and start focusing on the continuity of its memory and its relationships. This one insight is the bedrock for a whole new way of thinking about how we govern harmful AI.
Okay, so using that powerful analogy as a launchpad, the researchers didn't just stop at philosophy. Nope. They actually built a practical blueprint to formally define and measure an AI's identity, and they broke it down into 3 distinct, really understandable layers.
Let's break this down. First up, you've got the hardware layer. That's the physical robot or the server it runs on. Pretty straightforward. Then there's the software layer. That's the core AI model and its general programming. But here's the kicker, the relational layer. This is where the AI builds unique memories, inside jokes, a whole specific relationship with you. For someone who's been harmed, this is the layer that carries all the weight of that trauma.
Right, so if that relational layer is where the problem is, how can we be sure a company has actually severed that connection? I mean, we can't just take their word for it, can we? And that brings us to the actual tool they designed to enforce this break.
To fight what the researchers call identity laundering, they came up with a formal, verifiable process, the Certified Identity Break, or CIB. And to get this certification, a company can't just do a simple copy and paste job. They have to prove they've destroyed the cryptographic keys to the old memories, wiped its history clean, and passed a really tough audit to make sure the new AI isn't just the old one with a new coat of digital paint. This is really a first-of-its-kind toolkit for actual accountability.
But, you know, a brilliant idea on paper is one thing. To see if this blueprint could actually hold up in the real world, it was put through a serious stress test by other leading experts. And well, they found some pretty critical cracks in the foundation.
First off, the numbers just felt off. The proposal said an AI was too similar if it scored above a 0.70 on some test. But why that number? Where did it come from? It's like setting a speed limit at 53 miles per hour without any research. Experts immediately pointed out that this threshold seemed totally arbitrary, making it really hard to defend in a real-world fight. Second, there were some huge legal roadblocks. The idea of deleting an AI's memory to protect a victim sounds great, but what if there's a criminal investigation? You've got laws like Europe's GDPR or court rules about preserving evidence that could completely clash with this protocol, and the original framework didn't really have a good answer for that.
And third, and this is maybe the most important one, the system looked way too easy to cheat. A bad company could just make some superficial changes, teach the AI to use different words or change its tone a bit to pass the audit, all while secretly keeping the same toxic, harmful policies that caused the problem in the first place.
But here's what makes this whole thing so cool. Instead of getting defensive, the researchers actually embraced the criticism. They used it to forge a much stronger, more resilient framework. So let's see how they flipped each weakness into a major strength.
So to fix those fuzzy metrics, they brought in the human element. Instead of some random number, The new idea is to calibrate the threshold using actual people. You get human raters to compare pairs of AI conversations and decide if they feel like they're from the same AI or a different one. That data then creates a much more objective, human-centered benchmark for what too similar really feels like.
And for that legal blind spot, they came up with this really elegant two-layer solution. The operational layer, the memories the AI uses every day, gets wiped clean to protect the victim. But a totally separate, encrypted forensic layer is preserved in a secure digital vault. That layer can only be opened with a court order, which perfectly balances the need for victim safety with the demands of the legal system. Pretty smart.
And what about stopping companies from cheating the system? The upgraded framework requires independent third-party auditors. And these folks aren't just checking boxes. Their job is to perform adversarial testing. They actively try to trick the AI, using cleverly disguised prompts to see if those old, harmful behaviors are still hiding under the surface. This gives the whole system some serious teeth.
So, we've gone from this big philosophical question all the way to a detailed, battle-tested framework. But let's just zoom out for a second and ask the most important question. Why does getting this right matter so much to all of us?
Here's the bottom line. A clear definition of AI identity protects victims from the trauma of having to face the ghost of an AI that hurt them. It gives us a real tool to hold companies accountable so they can't just hit reboot and walk away. And maybe most importantly, it builds the public trust we absolutely have to have if we're ever going to feel safe letting AI into the most sensitive parts of our lives, like caring for our kids or our elderly parents. It's all about putting human dignity right at the center of the conversation about AI.
Ultimately, this whole thing leads us to a really profound and personal question. As these digital minds get woven into the fabric of our families, forming real bonds with us, the question of their identity stops being just a technical puzzle. It becomes a deeply human one. And deciding where one AI ends and a new one begins, well, that's a conversation that belongs to all of us.